Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to Cabinet. We'll start the agenda today. I know there's several councillors in the chamber today, which will be good, so they can ask some questions. So if you are wanting to ask a question, please indicate to Yolanda, the officer, or come in on the item, should you prefer, and we'll move on from there. So membership of the committee, are there any apologies? We have none. There's only one councillor, Adam Zaman, that's actually en route, so he'll get here as soon as possible. So moving on to item 2, minutes of the previous meeting. I will move these minutes. Who move them? And we move on to item 3, declarations of interest. If there's any declarations of interest, please can you ensure that you give them to the officer before you leave the chamber, Cabinet members. So admission of the public. There is no items to be taken in private. Item 9 does have an appended papers. Can I ask Cabinet if you've read all these appended papers? Yes, okay, thank you. And also the same is on appended papers on item 11. Can you agree that you've actually read them? Okay. Okay, so we are now moving on to item 5, deputations and petitions. Is there any? Okay, so we're now going on to item 6, questions by members of the public. Are there any questions? Okay, so item 7, questions by elected members. Any questions? Councillor Hall. Councillor Kendrick.
Me, right. Thank you, Leader. First of all, can I apologise that I'm not able to stay for most of the meeting. But I did want to come to raise an issue in one of my villages, Gummersall, which I'm hoping that you or one of the Cabinet members will be able to take up on the residents' behalf. And that is to do with our heritage buildings in the centre of the village. We have 4 heritage buildings in the conservation area. We have Red House, we have the Public Hall, we have the old Gummersall First School, and we've got Grove Chapel. And at the moment, 3 of them are either in serious dilapidation or in danger of becoming even more so. And there are 3 buildings over which the council has some control. The first one is Red House, and I was wondering if we could have an update, please, as to how we're proceeding with the disposal of Red House. The second one is the old Gummersall First School. We have some concern. It's in a serious state. It's an absolute eyesore on the edge of the conservation area. We had some tenants in there who were all told to vacate the site by the end of September because development was imminent. Those tenants all vacated the site. Nothing has happened since, and it's a danger to the public. We also have Grove Chapel, which although is not in the ownership of the council, we have been waiting an awful long time for the planning department to come back to the present owners of that chapel to give them the go-ahead from heritage purposes to convert into flats. And all the while that we are waiting for the council to do their bit, it is costing thousands and thousands of pounds in upkeep. And of course, as with the case with all these buildings, the villagers are getting very upset that the whole area is becoming more and more run down, scruffy looking, and unfortunately an attraction for antisocial behaviour. So I'm sure there's several departments involved in all this, but the council, I think, has a responsibility into trying to pull this together to ensure that Gummersall is actually a little bit better looking, and that we actually know what's happening with these buildings and the kind of timescale in which we can perhaps expect to see something happen with them. So I know it's a long question, but I'm hoping that one of your Cabinet members might be able to help us, please.
Thank you for the question, Councillor Hall, and I'll pass you on to Councillor Hussain.
Thank you, Councillor Hall, for bringing that to my attention. I will take back what you've told me and try and coordinate and get you a response to your questions. Okay.
Was there a supplementary, Councillor Hall? Are you okay with that? Okay, then, thank you. We'll move on to Councillor Kendrick.
Thank you, Leader. In Kirklees, there is an ambition, quite rightly, from Children's Services that every child, young person should have the best start in life. Absolutely agree with that. And the last government expanded the range of free childcare to much younger ages. And really, I would be interested in Councillor Zaman's view, her opinion on the fact that some of those places aren't being taken up by families on low income, and in particular SGO carers, and what she feels might be done to help and support that.
Councillor Zaman.
Thank you, Councillor Kendrick, for your question. I absolutely agree with what you're saying. I will take that back and I will look into that and see what the current budget, well, within the current budget, is there anything that we can do to develop that? But I absolutely agree that, you know, we do need to have the best start in life. But I'll get an answer back to you.
Was there a supplementary, Councillor Kendrick?
I'm not sure it's a supplementary or a comment, but I'll try it anyway,
We'll
if
take
you don't mind. Really, in terms of, it's not so hard to find which SGO carers aren't taking up those places, because we know about them. But really, what consideration might be given to how we find out where low-income families whose children would absolutely benefit from this provision aren't taking them up. How we do that is really another question that I throw in there.
Councillor Zaman, you all right, Asante?
Yeah, like I've said, Councillor Kendrick, I will come back to you. You know, you've obviously had this portfolio. That information hasn't been shared with me. I will go back, I will ask the officers to share that information, and I will come back to you with a reply.
Okay, and I think that's actually the comment that Councillor Zaman said. She's new in post, obviously. She's coming to terms with everything at the moment, and I do know that it was in safe hands with Councillor Kendrick was dealing with it, so perhaps that shared practice, and I know the officer Tom Brailsford's here today that can guide us as well. Thanks very much.
May I just make a comment that this isn't something I was briefed on by officers? This is just something I know about.
Well, thanks very much for that, Councillor Kendrick. Thanks for the input. As Councillor Zaman said, she would be coming to terms with it. Yeah. No, and I get your point there. Thank you ever so much. Thank you. So we'll move on to Councillor Turner. I believe you've got a question.
Thank you, Leader. This is actually under item 14, but I'll do it now because I may not be able to stay for the full length of the meeting. So on the Statutory Health and Safety Service Plan, I notice there's no Cabinet portfolio holder. This is, my understanding is that we have to have a portfolio holder for health and safety who's done requisite training. Have we any idea when this position might be filled and when they'll complete the requisite training?
Those positions will be announced imminently.
No, thank you.
No further questions? Oh, Councillor Bramwell.
Okay. So the Dewsbury Sports Centre, that's obviously not situated within my ward. My ward's Dewsbury West, but Dewsbury Sports Centre and the closure of Dewsbury Sports Centre has had a serious impact on so many of my residents. There is currently a campaign group that's been set up. That campaign group has been advocating ever since the doors closed, and I know that there are, including the leader, and I know that there's cabinet members that want to see this reopen. So I've been asked to raise this issue. In my ward, we have had several schools that are seeing antisocial behaviour and gang-related activity play a huge part in our communities. The sports centre did not just bridge the gap when it comes to adults, it bridged the gap to grassroots organisations. Those grassroots organisations utilised that building and were able to set up play schemes that intervened and worked on preventative measures with young people. They're not able to do that now as a source of, and we're already losing assets constantly. So again, I've been asked by this campaign team to raise this issue today and ask if the priority of this cabinet is to see the doors reopen of Dewsbury Sports Centre. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bramwell. I'll answer that question for you. It's indeed in my ward. I know the impact that it's had on it. It's been a very complex matter. We've got the dry side and we've also got the wet side. The wet side's closed, dry side's closed. Because of the complexity of it, I did meet with Soraya and some of the others. There is another meeting planned It is in our sights. We do want sports facilities in Dewsbury Town Centre, but if you're saying if it's tomorrow, we can't guarantee tomorrow, but for the future, it is in our sights, and that's what we want. We want to support the people of Dewsbury and Kirklees to access healthy sports, and also you talked about the crime and antisocial behaviour. I'm absolutely with you, 100%. It wasn't just a sports facility, it was used for other activities, so we have got that commitment. Okay.
Thank you. I was going to ask my question at item 10, but actually it very much follows on from what Councillor Kendrick just asked. So I thought I might as well, it's almost the same thing in some ways. So I thought I might as well ask it here if that's okay. All I wanted to say was, yes, the previous government expanded nursery provision, and the new Labour government wants to increase or to see 3,000 new nursery places made available in schools. And I wanted to ask the question, partly, I mean, have we got the SENDIF funding, well, does the current policy on SENDIF funding actually take that into account? Because obviously there is costs associated with providing the places in schools, plus also staffing arrangements as well. So I wanted to know how we were going to meet that new demand of 3,000 places, not just for all nursery children, but for children with special educational needs as well. Thank you.
Thank you for your question, Councillor Patterson. I'm going to bring the officer in, Joanne Sanders, to answer that on behalf of Councillor Zaman.
Thank you for that question. Just in terms of it is a moving feast, there is that entitlement to additional free early education and childcare. So we are currently working alongside the DFE. We're duty bound to look at making sure there's available and sufficient places. We've done some initial assessment. In terms of as that grows, of course, the funding that local authority receives grows with that. So we've made sure that we've built that into those annual conversations that we have about early years funding. So we absolutely want to co-produce that. We've done a lot of listening to the sector. It is challenging, but it is about inclusion in line with our SEND big plan. So it is, the pace is quite challenging, but I think it is also an opportunity for us, but it has been taken into account. Thank you.
Supplementary? No. Okay, thank you. So I'll move on to Councillor Court.
Good afternoon, everyone. Hope everyone's well. I'm just coming straight from a meeting at the Batley Library, and some of the discussions that we've had with reference to the Batley Library, very interesting, lots of enthusiasm there about keeping that library open. My question is, has a decision been made on when is the decision likely to be made, and what are some of the factors you're going to be looking at with reference to making that decision? Because in terms of the meeting that I've just come from and the discussions that have been had, there's an increase in the use of this library, and there's some wonderful plans about the provision of services and activities for the children and the elderly within that library. And it's a perfect resource, it's a perfect facility to deliver those services and those facilities for the youth and for the elders. So the proposal of moving to a smaller facility or across the road where the space is limited, where the wheel is going to be reinvented, is not very welcomed at all, and we don't feel it's going to be practical. So could I have a response, please, as to when a decision is likely to be made? What are some of the factors that have been taken into consideration? And the information which I've just mentioned in terms of the plans that the library has to increase the facilities, have those been taken into consideration?
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm going to answer that. It's still under consultation. We'll be coming back on it, so it wouldn't be appropriate for me to make any comments properly today. I'm happy to talk to you outside this meeting. We have been outside, and indeed Councillor Turner and myself did go out and meet Batley Library. We also facilitated the people that were using Batley Library to go into the town hall to have a look round, to look at the space, but there's still that conversation to take place. I'm happy to meet you beyond this, and we've got another meeting that I believe Councillor Zaman and Councillor Hussain will be present with the members of Batley Library and also the groups that function from there as well. So it is in our sights, we are looking at it.
Fantastic.
But the thing is, we've got to be careful. Is it the service you're wanting to protect or the building? The two different elements here, so
Yeah.
that's where the conversation needs to take place.
Yeah, I think that's brilliant. I think it's the building because it can deliver the service. And also, my friend Tanisha didn't get an opportunity to ask a supplementary question. So I'm going to ask you on her behalf.
That's fine, don't worry about it.
Can I ask the question?
Do you know what I'm going to ask?
No, I don't know if you have the question, then you ask it. Then you ask it, then if you can ask it.
Go for it.
So what I was going to say was, from our understanding is, we was waiting a further report with reference to the, in terms of the RAC, was it the RAC report? We attended a meeting and we were informed that we were awaiting the outcome of further investigations on a report. Is there any, are we anywhere nearer to getting the outcome of that report?
I haven't got that report to hand. I simply couldn't comment, but I'm happy to take it up. So if you want to get in contact with me tomorrow, we'll discuss the report if it's there for you in the public domain. Okay. Okay.
Thank you.
Councillor Lawson.
Thank you, Leader. Is like other councillors, we've all got parks, play areas, etc. And what I'm increasingly finding within Crosslandmore and Neverton Ward is they're overgrown. The play equipment isn't safe to come. But what gets me is, along with like playing fields where kids are supposed to be able to have physical activity, is the grass is now not getting cut long enough. I also then find out that there are 19 out of 72 parks staff that are facing redundancy. But I also feel that that is something in itself that needs to be looked at, because we need to be able to get people out for their mental health, their well-being, etc. And when you've got areas that are not fit for purpose, people are frequently avoiding those. But also what I do find is the fact that Unison have been waiting for over a year for a redundancy policy to be put in place. Can you actually tell me when that redundancy policy will be in place?
So I'll take the latter end of your comment. Operational matters are not for councillors, but if there is anything to be discussed with Unison, I'm sure that the Chief Exec and the officers will be discussing that. I'm going to bring Councillor Hussain in to answer the rest of your questions, but I will say that part of the costs that we're suffering from is the underfunding that we did have, and we have to be realistic. We have got a policy now where we're out being community enablers, where we're going across and different communities are actually doing things for themselves, but we have to be proactive and get them to that point, to provide them with things and equipment to help them do these things. So not everything will it be, but I'm going to bring Councillor Hussain in, but we have to be of the mind of enabling communities to do more and supporting them to do more, and the ones that can do it, supporting others too. So Councillor Hussain.
Thank you, Leader. Thank you, Councillor Lawson, for your question. Just to highlight, it's not an issue that's just, isolated to Crosslandmore, Netherton, and like you've highlighted correctly, funding has been cut back, services have been cut back, and we have to work within the budgets that we have. But I do take your point. It does help with health and well-being. It does reduce antisocial behaviour having parks that are operating, but we have a lot of fun projects coming up ahead. They're all readily advertised on Kirklees Council website in terms of the park spaces that are being done. So it's not a case that nothing's been done. It's just things take time, projects, planning, health and safety. There's so many things that could have to be taken into consideration when a project or park is sort of updated. I'm a bit confused because I'm not sure if this is casework specific, and if it is casework specific, I'd advise you to go down the right channels for council inquiries to resolve any cases in terms of grass cuttings that need to be made in your area. I wouldn't want to bring that into this cabinet meeting, but in terms of larger projects, I'm more than happy to get more detailed information for you in respect to parks that have been updated across the district, not just one area. Thank you.
Is there a supplementary, Councillor Lawson?
Thank you. This isn't actually just about my ward. Obviously, I can talk about my ward because I'm there trying to get the grass cut, to get bushes cut back in various play areas. It took me six and a half months for a small play area to finally be done. And this is not an isolated case. It's more about having the maintenance there of the grass cutting regularly, the bushes coming down, is they're not being litter. And yes, is communities do go out and do litter picks, but we cannot just rely on volunteers to take a lawnmower around a sports field to cut the grass, can we?
So to come back to that, Councillor Lawson, I do take your point, but that particular department is a very small team and there's only so much that they can cover across the entire district, so you have to give it time. There is a timetable planned for these projects to go ahead, so when the time comes they will be cut. If there's anything specific that you're referring to, please do let me know and we can look into that. But yeah, like I said, the team is very small. They already do quite a fantastic job in the very small limited resources that they have. And all I can say is if you've got anything specific, please do follow the correct channels and do raise it to me. I think there was an inquiry that you made quite early on and it was addressed by email too. Thank you.
All right, Councillor Coates. And then Councillor Kendrick.
Oh, thank you. I didn't realise you'd seen me. Just with reference to getting jobs done and specific, so there seems to be a disparity in terms of what level of service is given in different areas. So I have a specific complaint with reference to the Pavilion Bowling Green, and they've informed me that yes, eventually the grass was cut, just like at the Hurstlands football gala, the grass was eventually cut, but it's not done to standard. It's not a proper job. The grass that was cut was left behind and left for the public to clear. And at the pavilion, a specific problem is there needs to be regular maintenance and weeding, because if you have dandelions growing and they're throwing the ball off target, it makes the whole bowling experience untenable, and it's resulting in a lack of use or a reduction in use of an activity which is good for people's emotional and physical well-being. So can we, if we're going to do a job, do it properly?
Yeah, I take that as a statement rather than a question.
Yes.
Can I?
The question is, are there any plans to rectify the inadequate level of service that's been provided?
Thank you, Councillor Coates. Councillor Hussain.
Councillor Cahoot, the pavilion that you've mentioned is on a regular maintenance every 2 weeks. Obviously, we've got to take into account if there's any sickness or ill health. The team, like I said, is extremely small. When I mean small, you're talking singles figures. So they cover the entire district. We have to be proportionate in the service we provide across the board. In terms of the grass cuttings getting left behind, especially if it's a pavilion, we can look into that, but I would take me back to my year 10 geography. If grass is left there, it will decompose naturally, but if it is affecting their experience, we can go away and take away and look at that.
Thank you, Councillor Hussain. Supplementary.
Yeah, so grass being left, obviously that's not an option, but in terms of the bowling green and the grass growing, clearly it's inadequate. Whose decision was it to make it a one-man team or to cut the services right down to the level it's at? Because clearly it's inadequate. And what was the reasoning and rationale behind that? Couldn't an alternative source of expenditure been cut?
I'm going to intervene there because that's actually an operational question, and councillors, we don't deal with the operational. There might be a side conversation that we can have later on. But can I just say to you, I think there's got to be recognition for what staff we have got left and what we have retained, and we are trying to support through everything. This is not a criticism of their work that they actually carry out. The limited resources trying to cover the whole district, and it's a huge district that we're trying to cover.
Yeah.
So we've got to compliment them and give them a shout out that we do appreciate all the work that they do.
Yes, difficult circumstances. I accept that 100%.
And I know you meant that, so
Yeah.
thank you. Councillor Kendrick.
I'm really joining in very much on this same theme, I'm afraid. Bad news, Councillor Coote, because the 4 bowling clubs that play at the Firth Park in Hepmanwyke have been informed that their bowling green will in the near future no longer be cut by the council. And I know we talk about people doing things for themselves, but for years we've been told what a specialist job it was. So I'm not sure how the community can address that. I'm picking up on the other points that were made earlier about the frontline staff who do this work brilliantly. No complaints about that. Are the ones that are being shrunk. And that's the thing that is affecting our communities. And, you know, that's what concerns me. And it's really, can some thought be given to looking at the numbers of staff? Because there's only so many hours in a day, and I absolutely appreciate they can't get round everywhere, but, you know, for things are just stopping happening that are affecting some of the older members of our communities for a start off, and I'd love to see something done better about it.
Thank you, Councillor Kendrick. Do you want to come into that, Councillor? Yeah.
Thank you, Councillor Kendrick, for your question. I can go away and look at that. But like I said, resources are limited and we are trying to do our best. But I do take your point. Maybe there's somewhere where we can kind of manoeuvre things around, but that's something that we have to go away and look at, and I'll come back to you.
Did you have a supplementary, Councillor Kendrick? Are you okay with that?
No, I'm fine with that, thank you.
Okay, Councillor Bramwell.
Thank you, Leader. So just to probably feedback similar things without reiterating, but we're all facing similar things. Now, just to bring your attention to the libraries, so obviously there's been multiple services that have been cut and they are being pushed and allocated into the libraries. However, we're also seeing closures of libraries. Now, in my ward, we have the Greenwood Centre. The Greenwood Centre is an absolute asset within Ravensthorpe. It houses a number of services. It's somewhere where we were going to also place our ward surgeries. And unfortunately, I was made aware last week that due to unforeseen staffing absences that it was closed, it has been closed, and there are a number of conversations taking place. I do understand what the council leader says, and I agree in empowering our communities because it is the only way forward, and we all have a complete understanding of the Tory austerity that we faced for over 14 years and the negligence that it has caused and the repercussions that we're all facing. However, we also have to keep in mind that communities like mine in Dewsbury West are very high in deprivation. I have got families that are working 40 to 60 hours a week and cannot afford to feed their children and heat their homes. So how are we going to engage with these people and then empower them to come to community meetings, follow protocol, and then volunteer and help run these types of services? It has to come from the grassroots level. So I guess my question is, how do we do this? I'm fully on board. I will support in any way I can, but how do we do this?
And I hear exactly what you're saying. I am fully aware about the Greenwood Centre. Unfortunately, sometimes you do have staff that do go off sick. There was notices posted out. That was just an unfortunate situation. Regarding how we can do this together at grassroots level, I've said it before, we need to be more cross-party working, have a think tank to discuss how we can invigorate communities, not just working for themselves, but supporting them all the way through it. My worry is that the enablers, we call them enablers, you know, and help them to do things. Some are well geared up. We have the people that are of lesser income, like you just said, Tanisha, all the way down. They're the ones that we should be supporting more than focusing on the ones that can actually do it for themselves. That best practice should be used and help support others. So I'm happy. We've said all the time, this is about a democracy, a cross-party. We cannot do it on our own. We have to come together, and it's about the better good of communities. you want a supplementary?
No, I absolutely agree. So when it comes to making sure that we have that full engagement and that consultation, if you look at previous consultation through council, it's not always engaged with the majority of the community. So when it comes to something like this, we need a long-term sustainable plan. So can we ensure, although it will be the council's priority, but just to knuckle down and ask this question, can we ensure when that consultation takes place and when we are engaging with these types of communities to empower and ensure that they're working with us, that we are engaging with a bigger majority rather than a small minority and going from limited feedback?
Absolutely, totally agree with you, and I think you have to take it back to grassroots level, and I think that's where councillors have to be at the heart of it, and they know the how to reach communities, they know where these pockets of deprivation are. We often just go on statistics, we need to listen to the knowledge of local councillors, and that's what's missing sometimes. I think you should be at the heart of what we're doing. Is that okay? Item 8, and that's the appointment of Cabinet Portfolio members. So we have an appointment of Councillor Masood Hussain, who will be taking Highways. Councillor Turner... Ahmed. Sorry. I'm reading the wrong thing. Councillor Masood Ahmed, my apologies. So we were asked about the health and safety, that there was a key member that was required in this chamber to represent that. It's Councillor Yusra Hussain that actually has that portfolio, Councillor Turner, and I hope that makes you satisfied that we're in safe hands. So we're now going to move on to item 9, Special Educational Needs and Disability Send, capital investment in the rebuild of 2 special schools. So I'm going to invite Councillor Zaman in.
Thank you, Leader. So this report seeks Cabinet approval to draw down and spend a proportion of the 48.3 million capital allocation from the Aspire and Achieve Strategic Priorities section of the capital plan approved by the Council on 6th of March 2024. So there's 2 major projects to support children and families with special educational needs and disabilities that we're able to move forward today. They relate to our long-held ambitions to rebuild, relocate and expand 2 Kirklees special schools, namely Joseph Norton Academy and Woodley School and College. Both schools cater for pupils who live across Kirklees. Joseph Norton is for pupils with special social, emotional and mental health difficulties, while Woodley is for children and young people with complex autism. These are exciting multi-million-pound investments in our young people and families with SEND. Both schools will move to more suitable locations and they will enjoy high-quality facilities which are specially designed for their pupils. We're working with each school to ensure their needs are reflected in the plans. There is growing demand for specialist school places locally as well as nationally. We're responding to that by increasing local provision, which also means fewer of our pupils will need to be educated outside of Kirklees. Cabinet are being asked to approve the drawdown of funding from the Strategic Priorities section of the Capital Plan, which was agreed earlier this year. It will enable us to move into the next phase of building Joseph Norton Academy and Woodley School and College and delivering on our goal to achieve excellent educational outcomes over the many years to come for young people who will need additional help. Colleagues will be aware that the Council has a safety value agreement, which means we will make our SEND provision more financially efficient in the future. We're already being recognised for our successes in this area, and today's report is another key step forward. Above all, this is about helping our vulnerable children and young people to enjoy happy, healthy, inclusive lives and to achieve their potential. I am asking the Cabinet to help ensure there are sufficient school places available and suitable school premises for our children and young people with additional needs. Members are asked to approve the drawdown of capital funds as indicated in Appendix 4 of this report. approve the drawdown funding, the capital funds as indicated in Appendix 4 of this report, which will enable the appointment of specialist contractor to undertake the site clearance of all buildings on the former high school site of Fernside Avenue, Almondbury, Huddersfield, as a precursor for the future construction of a 180-place new build, communication and interaction autism school to replace the existing Woodley School and College site at Dog Kennel, Huddersfield, as well as note the allocation of government grant for high needs provision in Kirklees, which was announced by the DFE on 27th of March. Note that officers will return to Cabinet in late 2024 once detailed design of the new Woodley School and College has occurred and a pre-tender estimate has been calculated to seek approval and tender an award and contract for the new build school. So the reasons for these recommendations that I'm requesting Cabinet are to progress previously agreed plans on the 2 existing schools, to provide more places locally for children and young people with SEN and help improve their educational outcomes, and to support the high needs safety value agreement, providing a more cost-effective alternative solution to independent provision. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hussain. There's any questions?
Thank you. How confident are you that construction of the Almondbury site will start as planned in the summer of 2025 and be completed 2026, as the exit funding for the PPPI is still unknown?
So I'm going to bring in Tom Brailsford to answer that technical question.
Thank you. Tom Brailsford, DCS for Kirklees. I think what we're working through at the moment is the process of looking at those contract fees and how we work those through. We had a meeting, I think it was last week, to look at the detail. We can be reassured that this is our highest priority. Delivery of our safety valve agreement is one of our highest priorities, so we'll do everything that we can to ensure that the build stays on time, and we'll work with all partners to make sure that takes place.
Supplementary, Councillor Munro.
Yes, thank you. So, in the event that there unfortunately are some delays in completion, what will happen to those additional pupils with complex autism who would have been expected to be attending the new school in Almondbury? Thanks. How will they be accommodated? Where will they be accommodated?
Thank you. I think in the event of any delay, what we're doing as part of our strategy anyway with both of the special schools is actually we're really impatient for our children and young people to make sure they've got the right placement. So while this special school builds are taking place, we're actually opening other provision. So the headmaster at Woodley, for example, at the moment has already opened up a separate provision near the town centre to take some further children. So we're working with those providers to ensure that children can get places now rather than having to wait for the special school build. And I think that's a really important part of what our strategy is. The other really important part of our strategy, which I think people need to be really aware of, is that our ambition for our children and young people with additional needs is really for them to be in the communities and the schools, mainstream schools, where they live. So that in-between position of having an additionally resourced provision or a special school satellite, which means you get the best of both worlds, is also a way of meeting that need as well.
Thank you. Any further questions? No? Well, that's wonderful news for Kirklees. 2 new schools. Who would have thought it in this current economic climate? Well done, Kirklees. So we've got a mover, Councillor Zaman. I'm happy to second that. All those in favour? That's carried. So we're now moving on to item 10, Special Educational Needs and Disability Inclusion Fund Policy Update. Councillor Zaman.
To the national approach of funding to support children with special educational needs and disabilities in childcare settings, and to inform Cabinet of the outcome of a consultation on proposed changes to the SEND Inclusion Fund policy, and to seek approval to implement the revised SEND policy to reflect changes to the national approach. So Council have a legal obligation to provide SEND inclusion funding to cover the free childcare hours used by families under their entitlement. Historically, in Kirklees, we have gone above and beyond these legal duties by providing funding for additional hours. We call this Send If Plus. There is a change in the national approach to free childcare hours as the government has decided to expand the offer. In turn, this increases the number of hours we are legally obliged to fund. Supporting children and families with SEND is a priority for this council, and we are undertaking a vast programme of work to reflect our commitment. As just a few examples, we're rebuilding 2 special schools. We're working to open an AP free school which is tailored for individual needs, and our additional resource provisions are creating new opportunities for vulnerable learners. We also truly value the early years sector in Kirklees and the hugely important role they play in helping children to enjoy the best start in life. Earlier this year, Cabinet agreed there would be a consultation about levels of SENDIF and about how it would be allocated. As a result, we engaged with key stakeholders in the sector and considered their views. The SENDIF policy now needs to be amended for several reasons. It needs to reflect the changing process, the funding previously agreed, the increased number of children and hours, and it needs to align with our statutory duties under the expanded national offer. We will, of course, continue providing SENDIF support to settings to cover the hours that children are in receipt of their free statutory childcare entitlement. In addition, we brought in an enhanced SEND support offer for local childcare providers, helping practitioners to meet the children through high-quality inclusive practice. This is also building the support and resources that were already in place. I'm asking members to agree the revised policy for the Special Educational Needs Disability Fund, SENDIF, and papers have been attached, so members will have had opportunity to read through that, and also to delegate authority to Service Director, Learning and Early Support to implement the changes.
Thank you, Councillor Zaman. Councillor Kendrick, I was conscious, was it this one that you wanted to ask, or did you ask it previously?
I asked it previously. It was a more broader thing affecting any school.
Okay. So we've got Councillor Zaman moving it. Are there no further questions? So I shall second that. All those in favour? That's carried. So we're now moving on to item 11 on the agenda, Special Educational Needs and Disabilities, Mainstream High Needs Funding.
Thank you. So this this report is seeking the Cabinet's endorsement to move to a new mainstream cluster funding model and way of working to support children and young people with additional needs, and to reflect this arrangement with a revised funding model. So it is about changing the way funding is provided to support pupils with additional needs who attend mainstream schools. Schools will be given more flexibility in meeting the needs of vulnerable children and young people, helping them to get the right support in the right place at the right time. We believe strongly in our children being educated within our own communities wherever possible. We believe in nurturing an inclusive system which meets the needs of children and young people in a range of different ways. Under these plans, mainstream schools will be grouped into clusters based on their location, and we will provide high needs funding to each cluster so that schools can use the money to be responsive at the earliest opportunity and on a local level. This is part of our commitment to provide more quality and consistency for families with SEND, and there is added benefit that a wider range of children will be supported through this model, not solely with educational, health and care plans. We have worked closely with partners in developing these proposals, including Pecan and Kirklees Family of Schools, and I would like to thank them for their valuable support and input. Together, we want to maximise and improve support for families with SEND and help our children and young people to achieve the best possible outcomes. Clearly, schools are taking a central role in this way of working. They are at the heart of our communities and will be able to make informed decisions about the pupils, schools and areas they know best, ensuring pupils with additional needs are helped as early as possible. It is important to stress that each cluster of schools will be surrounded and supported by a team of professionals, for example, from early years support and educational psychology. So this report is a tremendous example of partnership working across the SEND system in order to help our children enjoy the best start in life. Transforming SEND services is incredibly important to us, and this report also aligns with the priorities of our Kirklees future, our vision for learning across the district. I'm asking members to agree a new funding model to support the children with special educational needs in the mainstream schools, with a new model that has been co-produced with schools, parents and children, as the new model will enable children to receive funded support at the earliest opportunity and delivered at a local level, and support delivery at the very high safety value agreement and our SEND big plan. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Zaman. Any questions? No questions on that? I'm happy to second that. All those in favour? That's carried. So we're moving on to item 12 on the agenda, Kirklees Environmental Strategy, Everyday Life. That's with reference to the council. So Councillor Hussain.
Thank you. Cabinet members and fellow residents, today I present to you with a vision that goes beyond politics. It's a collective commitment to people, partners, place and planet. Our new environmental strategy, Everyday Life, is not just a document. It is a beacon guiding us towards a more resilient, inclusive, thriving and greener Kirklees. As one of our 4 top-tier strategies for the Council, this document will work towards achieving the 2024 to 2025 Council Plan priority of continuing to deliver a greener, healthier Kirklees and address the challenges of the climate change. In Kirklees, we know that the environment really matters. Without a thriving, healthy environment, all our other plans we have for a better future for Kirklees cannot succeed. This is because the environment underpins everything. It is everyday, life it's our home, it gives us a clean air, safe places to relax and resources for our businesses and jobs. By creating high quality natural environment in Kirklees, this strategy strives to enhance people's lives and foster healthy, happy and better connected communities. Through this strategy, the Council is committed to make the environment a major priority for the district by working in partnership with a clear vision and direction of travel. We want Kirklees to be seen as a national leader on green issues, with the environment having a seat at the table in decision making both big and small. The strategy before you today is a high-level framework co-designed with over thousands of residents, hundreds of partners, and indeed you as councillors were both past and present on multiple occasions. This has been a reiterative process and not just a one-off engagement activities. Officers have done initial engagements, made necessary changes and then returned to groups to validate those changes. This involved officers going to each of the political party group meetings twice, alongside responding to comments at scrutiny. Officers have also offered meetings to the newly formed political parties since the May election to ensure councils are aware of and up to speed on this strategy. As a result of this extensive co-design process, this strategy is ultimately a collection of stakeholders and partners' ambitions and aspirations for Kirklees, which we as a council have collated into an accessible framework for action. This framework has been structured into 4 pillars of ambition, and these pillars represent the areas and the activities within Kirklees that put the most pressure on our environment, and those areas and activities where action and change would have the biggest impact. The first is the closing loop, which is all about profound action on minimising waste and making better use of our resources, from our clothes to the construction materials we use. The second is nurturing nature, which looks at our green and blue spaces such as parks, rivers and lakes, focus on restoring the quality of natural environment and enhancing biodiversity. The third is bringing it home. This looks at how we can achieve good quality, affordable homes and clean and affordable energy throughout the district, ensuring we are meeting our climate targets for net zero by 2038, whilst also reducing fuel poverty and the cost of energy bills. The fourth and finally is Kirklees on the Move. This theme looks at better, greener transport options for all, with more active travel and ensuring our transport infrastructure is fit for purpose to meet future demand. Within these themes are 12 headline targets underpinned by 31 more detailed objectives. Our key priorities. A unique aspect of this environment strategy is always on priorities, which are designed to make sure we don't lose sight of the bigger picture, and that the environment agenda is in fact about people. The first pillar is sustainable economic development, and that looks at how our targets and objectives support sustainable opportunities for growth and sharing economy, moving beyond economic activity that damages our nature and climate towards green skills and green jobs. The second pillar will focus on resilient futures, and that's understanding how we can better support our more vulnerable people and places, striving to reduce the impacts they experience from severe weather events and other social and political uncertainty, whilst making sure that the district is prepared for the impacts of a changing environment. And finally, environment for all. Aligning with the Inclusive Communities Framework, this ensures the ambitions of this strategy support fairness, great equity, inclusion, diversity and accessibility for all. So what will be the impact of this strategy be? Contrary to beliefs of some, taking a sustainable approach is the most cost-effective solution in the long term. This strategy will drive environmental action that doesn't just profit the environment and won't be delivered at the expense of households or the wider Kirklees economy. It will drive action that will help reduce monthly energy bills, improve the physical and mental well-being of our residents, generate economic opportunity through green job creation and green skills development, whilst also helping to reduce the volume of waste we produce, alongside the pollutants which are put into our rivers and our air. It will also see a reduction in the damage and cost our people and places experience because of events such as flooding, heat waves and the cost of living crisis. Over time, it will save people money and it will save the district money. So how will we deliver this impact, he asks. So, supported by the plans, policies and strategies that will sit beneath it, this strategy will be delivered through partnerships. This includes impending local plan review and transport strategy, alongside existing documents such as our Climate Change Action Plan and the 2023 update to the Resources and Waste Strategy. We are launching a partnership pledge, which is inviting organisations, businesses and residents to voluntarily pledge what they can to help support and deliver our collective ambition. Pledging is a twofold commitment, firstly to support and take action to achieve our vision, and secondly to participate in our monitoring, evaluation and reporting process. This pledge process also helps demonstrate that individual action does matter. Every small action counts and are greater for the sum of their parts. While systematic change driven by national governments, large businesses and corporations are required, choices by individuals, by small businesses, by local authorities will collectively create a significant impact. We've currently got 10 organisations within Kirklees who have pledged to this strategy ahead of its approval, demonstrating the desire of our partners for this strategy to be implemented and have its impact. We thank those organisations for their support. In terms of resourcing the strategy, this strategy for Kirklees is ambitious, and there is a clear question how this will be resourced. The budget and resource challenges are a critical issue for local authorities when talking about environment and climate change, especially given the context over a decade of our budgets being cut and austerity exacerbated by the strains brought about by COVID-19 pandemic and the ongoing geopolitical situation. Delivering this agenda will require public and private investment, coordinating existing resource and action across partners and within the council, maximising our collective resource use and community capital. We will also seek external funding, so we've been successful in or in process of obtaining over 14 million in external funding to deliver climate and environmental projects across Kirklees in recent years, and the ambition of this strategy will provide further opportunity and impetus to build on this success. To close, I will say this: in every decision we make, let's prioritise the environment. Let's be a district where actions speak as loudly as words, a place where sustainability and the environment isn't an abstract concept but a collaborative action plan. an integral part of our everyday life. As a result, I support the recommendation for onward submission to the Council. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hussain, for that comprehensive report. Are there any questions? No, so I'm happy to endorse that, for that to go on to Council. So all those in favour? That's carried. So the next item is item 13 on the agenda, Food Safety Service Delivery Plan. Councillor Hussain.
Thank you, Leader. So I'd like to introduce these two reports, presenting two service plans from our Environmental Health Department covering food safety and health and safety. The Council must produce these plans to ensure that we have the resources needed to deliver these two regulatory functions. Both service plans are legal requirements and are written to show the Food Standards Agency, Health and Safety Executive, the Council and the public that we have the resources available through a qualified staff to carry out two very important services to keep the public safe and well. Kirklees Council have always invested in services such as environmental health to ensure that we support and regulate businesses to ensure that they keep their employees safe and well, or in the case of food businesses, that the food they produce is safe to eat. The reports outline that we have enough qualified staff to both visit businesses to support them in complying with their legal duties, enough to qualified staff to take action against those few businesses who are not keeping their employees or members of the public safe. Thankfully, the majority of businesses in Kirklees are compliant with regulations. The main focus of the teams is to carry out visits and interventions based on our inspection programmes, required by food and health and safety legislation. That we investigate workplace accidents, food poisoning outbreaks and complaints about businesses. However, we also have projects and priorities focused on issues of concern. Some of the things I'm proud of are the Steps to Success programme in the food and safety team, designed to support poor performing food businesses to help them get up to scratch through a low cost training course before we have to take formal action. I'm also proud of the work that the health and safety team have done in relation to stress awareness in residential care homes. Based on the contents of both reports and the service plans, I'm confident that the Environment and Health Department has the support from the Council necessary to carry out the important area of regulatory work. I'm satisfied that the officers and the teams will make the required visits to businesses to support them to keep the public safe. I endorse the priority areas for the next 12 months, such as continuing the Steps to Success work to support food businesses and the continuing work on stress awareness and ensuring that safety equipment is up to standards in tyre fitters. I recommend that the Cabinet notes the report and that we adapt and publish the service plans for 2024-2025. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hussain. Any questions? No questions. Thank you for that comprehensive report. Again, officers, safety at the forefront of what Kirklees does. So I'm happy to second that. All those in favour? So that's carried. So we now...
Leader, I've covered the food safety report and the health and safety report in one. Sorry for not being clear enough there.
Right, so for any confusion for the public, so item 13, 14 were taken together at the same time, so it's all covered up.
Yes, that's correct,
Okay, so thank you for that. So we're going on to item 15. Councillor Ahmed.
Thank you, Leader. The report advises Cabinet of the intended delivery programme for the Highway Capital Plan allocation for the years 24-25, 25-26 and the additional funding received following the 6th of March 2024 full council budget approval. That was this year. The Highways Capital Plan for 24-25, 25-26 is a detailed programme of works to be implemented in 24-25 with provision schemes identified for and 25-26. The detailed programme is outlined in Appendix A of the report. The report presents the capital programme of all highway infrastructure, maintenance and enhancements for 24-25 financial year, totaling 24 million and 17 million for 25-26. Identified in the report is an overview of how this substantial investment has been prioritised. Highlights from the Cabinet report are pages 4. Notes the full year of the ELBA we have committed to complete the agreed programme. Page 6 notes the determining factors used to develop this priority based on programme. Page 7 to 10 notes that report is inclusive of all asset types, include highways maintenance, highway drainage repairs of structures such as bridges, walls, replacement of life-expired street lighting columns, upgrades to signalised crossings, junction improvements, encourage active travel by making off-road routes more accessible. Page 10 also notes the link to Regional Road Safety Vision Zero strategy. Page 13 notes the work to limit the impact of climate change and air quality. And page 15 notes our engagement strategy with elected members and residents. I want to emphasise engagement strategy with elected members and residents. This is not a consultation. What I'd also like to say on a positive note, messages, there's an investment of 40 million in the next 2 years into our highways in Kirklees. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Ahmed. Are there any questions? So we've got Councillor Munro and then Councillor Kendrick, okay?
Thank you, Leader. Please tell me why Lassells Hall Road and School Street in Almonbury Ward are not included or specifically referred to in the list in the LBUR funding programme, when these roads were earmarked for funding previously and received approval from Cabinet for fully costed funding in March 2023, but were withdrawn by the Council. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Munro. Obviously, quite clearly, as you can appreciate, I've only just picked up the portfolio. I'm more than happy to look into that as to why that wasn't included as a part of the scheme for 23 and get back to you with a written response as soon as I get one. Councillor Munro, thank you for your question.
Thank you.
Supplementary?
Yes, thank you. So how likely is it that any of the roads referred to will be fixed, safety measures implemented, potholes fixed, or any of the funding programmes, will they actually happen when approved Cabinet funding can be withdrawn at will without notice? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Munro. From my understanding, the roads will be approved and done. In terms of the roads that you made reference to, I will get back to you with a response into particular references that you just made earlier on. Thank you, Councillor Munro.
Okay, I'm going to bring in Councillor Kendrick.
Thank you very much. And it may be I misunderstand this report, but I'm just curious as to within 24-25 budget year, we had just over £1.25 million for a pothole fund, and in 25-26 the total is nil. Does that mean that no potholes will be fixed in Kirklees? It is currently inadequate, as we all know.
Yeah, thanks for that question, Councillor Kendrick. Are you all right if I defer?
I was just about to say, if it's okay, Councillor Kendrick, I do have the Strategic Director of Highways here this afternoon, so hopefully in terms of the operational side as to what has gone on, I can get you an answer for that, if that's okay.
That's fine.
Yeah.
I'm sure all councillors will be interested.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, my name is Graham West. I'm the Service Director for Highway, Street, Scene and Waste. Just to say that, going back a little bit there, the capital allocation, this is capital monies. The capital allocation is in the main from the City Region Sustainable Transport Strategy, so that's a fixed amount of money that comes into this local authority, for which we thank the government in that respect. So the money from a capital point of view is ring-fenced on that basis, so that's really, really positive. Regarding the pothole fund, what we find is that annually DFT do give out some additional money from time to time, and indeed the £1.2 million that's identified was additional money. So we will wait and see whether or not the government give any further monies in the next financial year. It doesn't mean that we won't fill the potholes, because this is capital allocation. We do have a revenue pot in order to fill our most needy potholes across the borough. Thank you.
Can I just add to that? Thank you, Graham. That obviously in Kirklees, Councillor Kendrick, we fixed 20,000 potholes in 2023 as well. Thank you.
Supplementary, Councillor Kendrick.
Just to say, I applaud the number of potholes fixed, but I think there are twice as many still out there, folks.
Thank you, Councillor Kendrick.
Thank you. I'll bring in Councillor Crook.
Thank you, Leader. I'm delighted that there was a question on potholes and it wasn't to me, so thank you for that. Firstly, I'm really pleased that there's a new Cabinet Member for Highways now been appointed, which is very important. And I hope that you'll share my delight and optimism in us also having a fantastic new Labour government and 3 excellent new Labour MPs in our area. My question on item 15 is, given the importance of this capital allocation over the next 2 years, both in terms of protection of the £5 billion highways asset that we have and in terms of the imperative to strike a balance between maintaining this network and investing in and expanding our active travel network to improve health and to reduce our collective carbon footprint, does the new Cabinet Member feel that he's been able to give sufficient political oversight to these priorities and to direct the budget allocation in line with this agenda ahead of Cabinet approval today? And I guess really what I'm asking you to do is give us some indication of your political priorities and whether they align with previous political priorities in that allocation distribution. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kirk. As you can imagine, I've only picked up the portfolio fairly recently, and in light of what you just said, a lot of those do align with me already. As you can imagine, I was previous portfolio to that prior to you picking it up as well, so happy to work and look at those priorities again with yourselves and through the strategic director.
Supplementary, Councillor?
No, that's fine. Thank you very much.
So is there any further questions? So Councillor Masood Ahmed's moved it, so I am happy to second it. All those in favour? That's carried. So we're now moving on to item 16, 24-25, 25-26, corporate landlord capital plans, proposed allocation of capital funding. So there'll be me that'll be delivering to the Cabinet. In this report, we have a significant number of buildings, including office accommodation, libraries, children's homes, centres, adult care homes, day centres. There's also the town halls and public halls, sports and leisure facilities. We also have to add into that the museums, the crematoriums, the cemeteries, car parks, depots and parks. Due to the size and the complexity of the Council's portfolio, this includes many heritage assets, and a system of prioritisation is required to ensure that the available funds are targeted at the buildings in the highest need. It prioritises urgent and essential condition, health and safety and service delivery issues via a 2-year rolling programme, and it's important that you note that that's a 2-year rolling programme. This sits alongside and complements the wider capital investment plan, and it should be noted that some of these programmes, for example, small centres, appear in both. It supports the delivery of a better outcomes by facilitating a programme of refurbishment, remodelling, rationalisation, and to ensure that the operational buildings remain fit for purpose and suitable for the delivery of the Council's objectives. Those buildings are not listed currently, having surveys or investigations are not in the plan. They can have potential to be in the future once we have further information. Cabinet, you're requested today, through this report, to consider and approve the themes of work from 24-25 and 25-26 as detailed in Appendix A in this report. You should have that and you should have read that. To consider and approve the proposed delegated powers as outlined in paragraph 2.3 and 2.25 in this report. Authorise the environment of 68,000 in capital funding from the Children's and Family Strategic Priorities, Woodley Special School, new build, to the corporate landlord budget. Authorise officers to identify, design, tender and implement the delivery of projects aligned with the work themes identified in Appendix A. And the reason for this recommendation, I think it's important that you note this, that corporate landlord baseline budgets address urgent and essential conditions, health and safety and service delivery issues within the Council's extensive portfolio and land and buildings. These budgets is also to be used to deliver better outcomes by facilitating a programme of refurbishment, remodelling and rationalisation, and to ensure the operational buildings will remain fit for purpose. And that's key. We need to have as many buildings up to a standard to ensure that we meet our needs. Where it's not considered financially viable to invest in buildings, the funding for these buildings, the Council will seek for the disposal of these buildings. And it's essential that we maintain these costs. So I need you to consider the projects that are being to be funded by the corporate baseline programmes, and I ask for your support in this. Are there any questions? No, so we'll move the recommendation. I've moved it. Could I second it? Councillor Zaman has seconded it. All those in favour? That's moved. So we're now moving on to item 17, the financial outturn report 23-24, to include the revenue capital of the housing revenue account outturn position, the annual report on the treasury management. So, council members, it's important today that you hear this statement. There's some positive news in it, but we've still got a long way to go. But whilst I'm here today, I am not acknowledging the previous administration because they set a lot of this out for us. So the outturn report sets out the council is facing up to unprecedented financial challenges. Like local authorities across this country, we have had to take action to bring down the costs throughout the year. This action has put the council in this more sound financial footing and reducing the overspend and strengthening in our reserves. As the report says, our overspend has reduced from 20 million in the early part of the year to 7.3 million at the end of the year. While this improvement on our bottom line is positive, it's still a case that local government finance is in crisis. 5 councils have effectively declared bankruptcy in the last 2 years, and a further 19 have extra government support to bring them back from the brink. Overall, the LGA estimates 6 billion black hole in council finances over the next 2 years. Increasing demands and costs for essential services like social care for adults and children are driving the pressures for councils like Kirklees. That is clear from the report. The demand for home care support for older residents, placements for children who need vital care and nursing home provision. These are just a few of the factors that are putting Kirklees and the councils across the country under immense pressure year after year. On top of these demands, we are still seeing the cost of living crisis that have made bills go up for everyone. While inflation has slowed, costs are still much higher than we ever thought a couple of years ago. And of course, it comes back against the backdrop of our funding. Kirklees remains underfunded compared to other local authorities, which means that the pressures on budgets are even more severe than they should be. That's why this council has been taking decisive action to reduce the cost to transform the services. That action has been successful in stabilising our position. Not every council can say that, and I think you could see that as a recognition of the hard work that has been going on. But this is no time for complacency. Those with underlying pressures, especially social care, will continue to put pressure on our budgets. We need to maintain our focus in good financial management and continue to be open with our residents about the challenging. Despite the change in government, we still need to lobby to ensure that Kirklees is at the forefront of what we do. So members, that's a condensed version of the financial outturn, and I commend that to be moved on to council. Are there any questions? Can I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Zaban. That's been moved. Okay, it's moved. Yeah, that's been moved. So as we come to the final item on the agenda, that's item 18, Annual Complaints, Performance and Service Improvement Service Report. I will be delivering this report to you, and there's some important things that you need to note in this and the rationale behind why things were done. So the Cabinet report is here as a copy of a mandatory annual complaints performance and service improvement report for 23-24, including the Council's self-assessment against the Housing Ombudsman Complaint Handling Code for comment and approval. The important note is that the deadline for the submission of this annual report to the Ombudsman was the 30th of June 2024. However, the Ombudsman accepts that the timing of the local election may cause issues for the local authority landlords to publish and upload their submissions by this deadline, and it was agreed with the Ombudsman on the 5th of June that Kirklees Council submitted a draft report of self-assessment by the 30th of June. This was based on the Ombudsman's expectation that the governing body, i.e. the Cabinet, will review the self-assessment of this report at the meeting on the 9th of July, and to ensure that sufficient internal scrutiny of information, following which the Cabinet would include their response in the final report, along with any changes to be made to the documents following the review. So the recommendations in this report, Cabinet, what I'll do is when I get to it, I will read you a statement for you to endorse and accept, because it's our recommendation. So it was to note the annual draft Complaints Performance Service Improvement Report for 23-24 and the self-assessment as submitted on the 30th of June 2024. To consider the draft Annual Complaints Performance Service Improvement Report for 23-24, which includes the self-assessment against the code that sets out the appendices of 1A and 1B. To provide a response of the annual complaints, and this is where Cabinet are asked to reply with a response. So I'm hoping that you will agree that the self-assessment against the code was accurate reflection of the Council's position, and that the area in which the Council has fallen short, namely reasonable adjustments under the Equality Act 2010, was noted, and that the plan to rectify this were in place and being progressed. To authorise, and so that was the statement, so are you happy to accept that? Can you just show your hands so I can show that you're happy to accept that? To authorise the officers to publish the final report, including the Cabinet's response, which will be included online, and the self-assessment on the Council's website with this submission. So, members, that report is before you. There is a lot of routes, there's been a lot of work that's been done comprehensively, and I think there's been a bit of a learning exercise in this. We're not the best, but we're striving to be. There's new routes for complaints to be handled, and we have an experienced team now and a back office that are actually being very productive in what we're doing, especially around what's required. So we're hoping to move forward with this, but it's positive news that whilst complaints on the report show they've gone up, it's a positive thing because there's a new avenue and for people to go through the route to make that complaint. So I've got to commend the team that have been working on this tirelessly. There's a long way still to go, but we are committed as a council to drive for excellence and the best for Kirklees housing. So members, I ask you to move that report. Are there any questions? No? Okay, so I've moved it. Somebody second? Councillor Hussain seconded. Thank you. So that concludes the business for the day. Thank you for your attendance. Thank you.